Salvete omnes, ego sum, Magister Sullivan. Welcome back. Here to talk about Aeneid 6, lines 450 through 476. If you remember last time, we met Charon and the Sibyl and Aeneas finally produced the golden bow and were able to cross, or Charon was actually able to take them. And then we meet Cerberus, and they drug Cerberus, or Sibyl drugs this Cerberus with a medicated cake to gain entrance into the underworld. And so now we are about to meet an old flame of Aeneas's. So here we go. So interquos, among whom or among them, meaning the shades, Phoenician Dido, fresh from her wound. So fresh. Was wandering, says the imperfect tense, was wandering in the large forest. And so we have quam ut primum. So as soon as the Trojan hero stood next to her and recognized her gloomy, transparent, through the shadows, just like a moon. He who so just like a moon, he who either sees or thinks to have seen to rise in the first of the month through the clouds. He sent down tears, so he cried, and he adphatusest, and he but he addressed her with or in sweet love. Unlucky Dido, unfortunate Dido. A true message, therefore, had come to me, that you had been extinguished and followed death with a sword. I'm sorry, this should be a question. So almost like as if, right? Alas, was I the cause of your death? So to be here is a dative, so it should be to you, but here we can use it as a genitive, right? So I swear by the stars and by the gods above, and if there is any faith, any trust. So remember, this is si, nisi, num, and ne. Every ali drops away, so this should be ali qua, so any. Okay. Under the lowest earth, queen, because our verb here is I unwilling or unwillingly departed or left from your shore. But the orders of the gods, which now drive understood me to go through these shadows and through these or the places rough or tough in decay and the deep or profound night. They drove me with their commands. This is the same thing as potui. I was not able to believe, to trust that I bring, or that I was bringing, or that I brought this so great a pain to you from my departure. And therefore he says, stop your step and don't withdraw yourself from our gaze, from our sight. Whom do you flee? This is probably out of order here. It should be, this is the last word by fate, which I shall address to you, which I shall speak to you. And again, I think I messed up here too. Talibus dictis with such words, with such things, which as things having been said, right? Aeneas was soothing her spirit, burning, her burning spirit, and her spirit gazing at or looking tough. And was arousing, right? So here we have the imperfect verbs. All right, and it's going to go with that. And arousing tears. So she, having turned away, was holding her eyes fixed on the ground. She is no less, or is no more, she is no longer moved with respect to her face, with his speech having been started, having been begun. Right. So one quick grammatical note here. So we've maybe talked about this a little bit, but there's an active voice and a passive voice. So the active voice is a verb that does the action, whereas a passive voice, the subject does the action. In a active verb, and now in a passive verb, the subject is being done to, and so therefore doesn't take an object. But here, this is kind of paying to the Greek. There's a middle voice, right, with the Greek language. So that's what Wolton here is. It's an accusative, right, with this verb here. All right, so so he as if, or that which, if a long-lasting flint or Marpesian cliffs would stand. Right, so that she's being compared to as if. So flint was pretty sturdy, and the Marpesian rocks or cliffs are known for their toughness. At last, she took herself, or she snatched herself, right? Then this reflexive, right, referring to Dido herself. And as an enemy, she fled. She fled back into the shadowy grove, the shadowy forest. Right. One thing to note too, if we're unclear that this is a perfect verb or past tense verb, we can always look to the verbs around it. Most notably corribuit, because the u here is definitely going to be past tense or perfect. So where her former husband, her former spouse, responds to her with concerns, with cares, and Zacchaeus, who is her husband, he equals her love. And that's kind of all she was ever looking for with Aeneas, to be worthy of that love. And Zacchaeus, if we get a little background story, Dido's former husband, she made a pact, again, never to love again. And Aeneas came along, and at the urging of Anna, right, she breaks that trust. And so that's why it's so hard for her to have Aeneas spurn her. And no less, Aeneas, having been beaten, having been struck with the unfairness, or with this unfair misfortune, Right, and again, we have the interlocking word order here. He follows, understood eam or didonem, he follows Dido far with tears and pities her going. Right, so this is a participle, a present participle going. You hear the translation. So that's it. So here we see Aeneas meet Dido again in the underworld, 450 through 476, and at first he is quite he's in tears, and then he asks her those questions of he didn't know that he did this to her, but then it's kind of suspect because he's blaming it on the gods, and totally trying to say that it's not his fault. And she wants nothing to do with him. She's stoned. She's actually described as her attitude as being as strong or long lasting as a flint, and also the Marpesian rock. So she's literally unmoved by him. There's nothing he can do. And as much as he talks to her, eventually she seeks the comfort of her husband, Sychaeus, who equals her love or returns her love that Aeneas couldn't. And then Aeneas is left to watch her retreat back into the shadows of the underworld, never be seen before or never to be seen again. And he himself is in tears and he pities her going. Um, but again, he's bound by fate, as we found out in the beginning of the Aeneid. So that's it. That's line 450 to 476. From here, we're actually going to flash forward to line 847, and then we're going to tackle 847 to 899, where Aeneas receives his destiny. All right, omnes, gratias et curate ut valiatis. All right, take care, everybody, and I'll see you at the next installment. Valete.